moment. No one's perfect, but at any given moment, draw yourself back in, just like give yourself a mental little slap. Hang on a sec. What are we doing here? Let's go again. Hard if you've got an entertaining client who really get you lives like that, but just drill yourself back in. I've got a client I train. He's my 6:30 guy, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Super charismatic, and tells a good story. It's very easy for him to try to knock you off, and then all of a sudden you've only done like 10 sets of work in the hour. And it's like one time he came in. Do you remember when Will Smith delivered that slap to Chris Rock?
Mm-hmm.
And then like 2 sets into the workout, he said, have you seen what Will Smith did? I said, no. He goes, well, check this out, And I was like, Ross, and we lost about a good 15 minutes of session because he's going, I go, hang on a minute. Yes, just put the phone away, man. Draw yourself back into it. That's an extreme example of someone giving you something which just knocks you off. But at the end of the day, he's paying for the hour. So I had to draw myself back in, and we stayed extra that day. But it would have been very easy to just like roll around and do nothing for the hour because of the shock of that.
That's really interesting because different trainers are different.
Mm-hmm.
I've like worked alongside so many. Some people like if we talk about the spectrum of training to yapping,
Yep.
and some trainers are a little bit more comfortable on the yapping spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
and some trainers are like definitely more comfortable on the training end of the spectrum. Where would you place yourself in that sort of like?
I've got to be honest. The reason it's a pet peeve is because I love a yap. I do love that. I am that guy, So I'm looking over there thinking, okay, I have been that guy who's been completely distracted, and they walk out of there having done not enough work in a session. And now I look over and I see it happening, thinking, okay, that might have been me 20 years ago. Obviously, I've been trained for a very long time. So now it's a pet peeve when I see people doing probably what I used to do. So on the training yapping spectrum, I'm probably closer to training because I literally draw myself back from the yap to make sure they get something done out of every session. Otherwise, before you know it, you've been training for a block or a few weeks, and the clients got no tangible result because there was too much yap.
How much do you think like so them not getting a result, right? Obviously, the point of us working with them is that there's some sort of physiological adaptation occurring. There's some degree of behavioral adaptation occurring. We've made them better in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have seen cases where like very negligible amount of physiological adaptation has occurred,
Mm-hmm.
and arguably almost no behavioral adaptation has occurred.
Mm-hmm.
But that client has continued to work with that trainer for maybe years.
Yeah.
Um, and there's always that argument of, well, if the client sees that they're getting value, then what's the issue, right? And the trainer's kind of like happily kind of going along with it. You obviously maybe feel, oh, I've got some like professional pride here.
Yeah.
I want to see an outcome from the work that I do. I don't want to just turn up and it's a fun yap that we're having. Um, but it is a thing. Like, how much do you think that's a bad thing that somebody's just having a yap? They're happy to continue paying for the sessions.
Sooner or later, it will catch up with you. I used to work for a company. Should I name them? Is we recording?
You go for it, yeah.
Yeah, I used to work for a company called Matt Roberts Personal Training.
Right.
In central London, and it was probably between early 2000,
Yeah.
late, up for about 15 years, the leading personal training company in the UK, right? And there were lots of clients who were in there who were doing exactly what you just described. They'd turn up, and it made them feel good. And you could argue there wasn't a physiological adaptation.
For sure.
You could argue that, but they kept coming, year after year, and they were happy. Is that a bad thing? No, it's a good thing. But my point is, as a trainer who's conscientious, if that's who you've got, fine. But you should have at the back of your mind something which is they can hang their hat on, something they can look back on and say, yes, I did this with that person. It doesn't have to be much, but the trainer should make sure that on top of the value they're getting in just turning up and having a good time, they've got something they can say, yes, with that person, I achieved this. It doesn't have to be much, but if the trainer goes completely into what the client's thinking, yeah, that was a good session, we didn't achieve much, but it's all good, then you're soon lost. Because at some point it'll catch up with you and then you're tired.
I have really so I'm similar to you, and that is a pet peeve of mine as well. I have clients that there's a lot of yapping that goes on for sure. Even I can think of the most extreme one where a majority of our session is yapping, right? And I still have my eye on whether we're progressing in a particular exercise or not. I know that that person is there predominantly for the yap, and she knows that I'm there predominantly for the training, and so we meet each other in the middle. But somebody has to be there, like still focusing on, are we progressing forward?
Exactly.
And I've said this before, most of the time, most trainers, like almost all of them, do care about outcomes. They do actually want to see their clients get better in whichever way that they do get better. But I have come across like one or two where they're happy for their clients to come in and they're basically a paid friend, and they have this sort of yappy sort of session on the gym floor. That and what you said there about it catches up with you.
Yeah.
And that's what's really interesting I've observed about these individuals is they're always looking for new clients. And they are wondering why, and they take it very personally when their client leaves, and because they think, oh, that person, we were getting along so well, we were friends, they should have been loyal to me. And it's just like, they were. It's just that you weren't loyal to them because they came to you with an outcome in mind, with like looking for support in a particular thing, and you didn't deliver that thing. And they liked you so much that they didn't want to have the confrontation to say, look, you're just not helping me in the way I need help, but we're cool. I'm just going to stop.
Yeah, exactly. You got to remember what's the original reason they came in, and are you nudging them towards that, even if it's a little bit? Because when they eventually leave, I mean, you know, I've trained people for years and years, like decades, generational as well. I've trained, you know, gentleman I train now, I used to train his mum back in years and years ago. So, but when they look back and look at their time with you, what will they say about it? Will they be able to say, I achieved this?
Yeah.
If they can't say that at all about anything, then perhaps you're not doing your job as best as you could. I won't say you haven't done your job because they kept coming and they got a result, you know, in terms of whatever that was going to be. But what was the original reason they came to you? And are you nudging towards that in some way every time you see them? On top of the fact they're having a good time, on top of the fact that you're getting them moving where they otherwise might not have done. And all of that's good, but that's basic. Are you nudging them slowly but surely towards the original goal they walked in for, or the goal that you've, you know, re-established? You know, are you constantly asking a question every now and again? What are we driving for now? You know, it's we've just gone through, you know, what I call the 2nd January, you know, the start of September, and I always ask around about this time of year, what are we going to push for between now and the end of the year? No matter who I'm training, just to say, oh, okay, you know, just so that you're not just spinning that wheel, just so you know, what are we focusing on now? And some clients roll their eyes, you know, they just say, well, you know, I said, no. And deep down, they all like it. They do. They you know, oh, he's focused. He's thinking about what we're doing. And then they see whatever comes back. I make sure I push that into the sessions, you know, subtly, sometimes not so subtle. You know, I change what their directions are for outside the session. I see people between 1 and 3 times a week. You know, clearly I need to get them doing something outside of the session. So what their answer is depends on, you know, what their response is, informs what I ask them to do, either nutritionally or regarding their movement. So my clients all know, hopefully, that I'm always thinking about what they're doing in their goal, on top of the fact that hopefully they're having a really good time in session. And I think that's important. So if I catch myself drifting off or being, you know, sidetracked by their excellent chat, you know, I quickly just like, come on, get back in there. And then when I see it happening across the room, then I sort of, you know, either actually roll my eyes or, you know, you know, in there roll my eyes, and I'm thinking, then I catch myself and don't be so judgmental. That probably used to be you, and it is you on a bad day. But you know, if you're asking for a pet peeve, that is it. Because
I think it's definitely a it's a curious one, because sometimes in the back of your mind you're like, you've paid for this session and you've signed up to this for a particular outcome, and coming to the session and then immediately looking to turn it into like more of a conversation than a training session. What the psychology of that has always, I can see it in some cases where I'm like, I kind of get what's going on here. You've become very comfortable with me. You're looking forward to the chat that we're going to have. I also think that we're in a position of trust where someone's literally said, oh, great, I don't have any accountability here. I'm going to put it straight onto you. And so their assumption is we're always going to keep an eye on that. We're always going to keep an eye on making sure that the training is happening. And so I can relate, like you saying it's a pet peeve, is because the person has trusted you, the trainer, to make sure that that is going to happen. And they are not responsible for it, as much as we would maybe like for some of them to take a little bit more accountability, a little bit more responsibility around it. You don't have that same privilege. You have to kind of be like, right, did we get the work done that we needed to get done within this sort of general period of time? Not necessarily. There's some sessions where it's kind of like you can see the person just needs a bit of a yap today.
Yeah.
That's cool. We're not going to push it too hard.
And then, of course, unless you're training at the elite level, you're dealing with general population, then life comes into it too.
Yeah.
You know, has that person had a really, really stressful week? You know, did they get any sleep last night? Were they up? You know, had been kept up by a youngster in a home? So you might be able to deliver everything that you plan to deliver in that hour, but did you get the maximum possible on the day? You know, did we get people sometimes at the end of the session, people say, oh no, that wasn't a good one, was it? Or, you know, I could have done more today. I said, did you give everything that you could have done in that particular like session? The answer is yes, and that's a win. But it's when they come in and they could have done more, but they didn't for an external reason. Then it's like, oh, yeah, we need to do better. And that's what I'm looking for. Get the most you can out of every possible session, both from trainer and client, and you'll nudge towards where you want to be.